It's National Poetry Month, April, and it's the 25th year since National Poetry Month started in 1996. And it was started by the Academy of American Poets. And they wanted a way to increase awareness and appreciation of poetry in the United States. And that's why it was created. So, hi everyone and welcome. And we're going to start with our readings for today. And first up is John Burroughs. He's the State of Ohio Beat Poet Laureate. Hi, John.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you for having me. This is great. And I'm really looking forward to the other poets, all of whom I very much respect and admire. Because the PBS documentary Hemingway is on my mind, I decided to read an old poem about Ernest Hemingway, and it's entitled Will, or A Way of Hemming. I hear Hemingway said there is nothing to writing. All you have to do is sit down at a typewriter and bleed. He was a lying son of a gun. Just asked his dad. The more he bled, the more he bled, and the less he said, until now he doesn't say shit. Though he wrote a lot of it that was published posthumously. Sometimes you have to put the bloody typewriter away and breathe. Breathe in the air, breathe out the error, and you will. But the problem comes when you come to see your whole life is an error to somebody's you loved upon a time a whole lot more than you do now. They fantasize about you breathing and bleeding out, no longer in. I hear Hemingway saying, fuck this shit. I'm sick of the bell tolling and the sun also rising. I know that no matter how hard I try, my Garden of Eden will always be fiction. And I'm tired of telling lies, especially if it means continuing to bleed into my typewriter. My biggest fear is that when I'm gone, you'll publish it anyway, without the bleh before the Eden. It will be my worst, best bullshit. You will. If I must bleed, let it be in a foyer, away from the machine, but through my mouth, my brain, once more, then run under the front entrance and out. And you will still think you hear me. Thank you all. This poem was recently in the Beat Generation anthology, and it's entitled Flagging After Autumn Field by Siyun Chang. Leaves of grass wave their proud banners in conflicting directions, are bent by the broken. The body electric, selectively wounded, is broken by the bent where lilacs never thrive. A once buoyant meadow is trampled by twilight, grows weary of the fall, bloodied by witless man. My next poem is entitled Well, it comes from my book, Rattle and Numb, which Venetian Spider Press published. Thank you, William. And it's entitled Disciples. Clarence looked a little like a rabbi and taught us to play truth or dare, and we had no doubt he knew best how to do it, since he had a beard and his own apartment, and we were just 12. And one more poem. This comes from my forthcoming book, The Rest, W-R-E-S-T, of the Worthwhile. And it's entitled Random Rules, after David Berman, 1967 to 2019. There is nothing worse or better than Purple Mountain's majesty or a Purple Mountain's tragedy. In 1984, I was traumatized by entering the Marine Corps and refusing to serve. It made me servile, temper lie. Don't let your parents make you value killing over communism. In the Gulag, I wanted to be David Berman when I grew up, though I had not yet heard of him. By the time he shot himself, I had changed my mind. If there is a point to this life, I am still out, lining it. Find the patterns. Fully embrace multidimensionality, whether or not it is plain to see. Don't let your parents make you value religion over reality. What you thought was a tragedy probably was. You can still find value in it, like religion. Semper Fidelis. In 1984, I fell in love with Purple Rain, and Laura Lynn fell out of love with me. Don't let your pastor convince you to break up with your Catholic crush. This poem has nothing and everything to do with its inspiration, like responses to a Rorschach test. Purple robes cannot convey holiness, though art can allude to them, and art is always holy. Imbibe life. Hold on. Let go. Embrace more than one medium. See life as an hallucination, with or without drugs. Realize the hallucination is real. In 1984, I was ill, or well, depending on who you ask and when. Perhaps I still am. There is no other. Be friends and strangers with yourself simultaneously. American water will make you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Well done.
Next up, we have David Leff, and he's a lifetime Beat Poet Laureate since 2018. He's the Beat Poet Laureate of New England.
Thank you very much, Debbie. And thank you for putting this event together, the series of events for National Poetry Month. We all owe you a lot for doing that. And it's great to be here this afternoon with other like-minded poets who share a love of the legacy of the Beats. I started my experience with the Beats as a teenager. And in fact, inspired by them at age 16, I hitchhiked cross country from Connecticut to California, where my father was living, and went to visit my dad. I fictionalized the event in a novel in verse called Finding the Last Hungry Heart. But I also have some other poems about that period of time. So I'm going to read the first one, which is called Dad at Rosarita Beach, Mexico, 1971. At 16, I thumbed 3,000 miles to see him, hair to my shoulders, driven by easy rider dreams, Kerouac in a pocket, Dylan's Highway 61, morphing every road to metaphor. Self-exiled to a shack in LA, the yeshiva boy from Brooklyn who quit high school ached to show me the world. With $52 and cushion change, we drove his battered Chevy wagon south as far as the day was long, sleeping on sand at Rosarito Beach until the tide licked our feet like a loyal dog. Waking hungry, we stopped for breakfast at a Chinese restaurant. Paper lanterns, bamboo wallpaper, a golden Buddha on our table. An Asian waiter recited specials in English, shouting our order to the cook in Spanish. We ate slowly, savoring the moment as much as each forkful of deep-fried tortilla and scrambled eggs with salsa verde. Watching clips of Tricky Dick on CBS Morning News, we washed it all down with an ice-cold Carta Blanca. This next one I wrote in honor of Lawrence Ferlinghetti when he turned 100. You know, we lost him recently, very sad, very big loss. I remember when I was younger going to City Lights Books, and that was, I didn't meet him, but it was quite an experience just being in the store. So this is called Found Ferlinghetti at 100, a birthday souvenir. And I weave some of my own words with words of Ferlinghetti's. Found Ferlinghetti at 100, a birthday souvenir. You were a pocket poet in my backpack at 16 as I thumbed coast to coast to find the secret meaning of things, daring to cross all the obscene boundaries. Suffering unfair arguments with existence. For years afterward, I struggled for an open eye, open heart. Decades passed before I knew how to paint sunlight, find a Buddha in the woodpile, and keep a journal for the protection of all beings. My Brooklyn-bred dad died in a Coney Island of the mind, teasing me with rhythmic sea sounds and the scent of fries and salt, mere pictures of the gone world. I learned that growing older births landscapes of the living and dying that steal time and take a bit of world. So I found that these are my rivers, Farmington to Connecticut to sea, and discovered poetry as an insurgent art. It took too long to know that love is no stone on the moon, but the wet, soft warmth of my lover's kiss and the open road of your poems that led me there. Now, on another cross-country trip, I went to the Spam Museum. I didn't go on that 16-year-old adventure there. I don't even know if it existed then, but the absurdity of having a Spam Museum struck me as a perfect place that the Beats would have enjoyed. At the Spam Museum, pass a boy in bronze walking a pig, and I enter a shrine to American invention and marketing, housed in a suburban shopping plaza. Hallowed historical site meets glitzy carnival cheer. Celebrity in a can is nutrition in a feel-good film with upbeat commercial clips. Antique containers, old-time ads are sacred relics beside the founder's words engraved in glass. As much metaphor as meat, it's my worthless emails, a survivalist gourmet meal, punchline searching for jokes, weapon of mass consumption that won the big war for Ike, my scout campfire ritual on a stick. Every bite is what I need it to be, and a dozen cans a second don't lie. We are what we eat. Spam, I am. The next two poems are ones that I think have a message about life that the Beats would have appreciated. This one's called Message in a Bottle. If the body is a vessel, it's stuffed with messages tossed on an ocean of uncertainty, carried on currents of dreams. Some bottles wash up on distant shores, nestle on sandy rack lines of chance and detritus, awaiting discovery. Most shatter on nearby rocks, shards rolling in breakers for decades until softened glass finds a child's eye, hand, and pocket. Resurrection. Life is a work of art left unfinished, like a Gilbert Stuart's ultimate Washington portrait. But the living are up to mischief, with lapses of memory, hindsight, and tall tales creating an afterlife never lived, like a ceramic jug's chance as a lamp, or a rusted plow become garden decor. Resting in peace is more than a big sleep, and eternity may be a lot longer than supposed. My last one, I'll come back to my dad. This is called, and my dad grew up just sort of next door to Coney Island. He'd walk there most days in the summer as a kid. It was more to him than a Coney Island of the mind. This is called Seance for Dad. For years, I lit a candle in your memory, but it seemed a cold, reflexive gesture. The light weak and flickering, just another vigil before darkness returned. Like a sacred offering, today I laid out a pack of Camels, a can of Rheingold, the dry beer, and a Coney Island hot dog and fries from Nathan's Famous. It seemed so right, but your spirit never arrived to greet me. So I ate your meal, toasted your life, and lit up your signature incense, ascending to heaven. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was wonderful. We have William DeVault. He was the U.S. National Beat Poet Laureate from 2017 to 2018.
It was?
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. My turn now? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Anyway, it's great to be here. This is an incredible array of poets this afternoon. And I want to thank you all for being here and the audience for all being here. I had a tough time picking the exact poems I was going to be doing today because I've been doing at least one poem a day to celebrate National Poetry Month as a recording. The first one I'm doing is called The Revolution Will Be Digitized and Shown on YouTube. The digital renaissance kicked off about 25 years ago. Words and images spinning out of control around the world. My Panther cycles have been read on every continent. My poem, A Touch of Heather, has been banned in a Catholic girls' high school in Dundalk, Ireland. Half of the women I've said I love you to in my poetry are continents away. Romance is only part of the whole, though. The essence, the Zen, is communication. Mediocrity often, ironically, hidden by sound and fury and Photoshop. In the beginning is the word. In the end is the word. And that still small voice that spoke to Elijah is still the word on the page that outlives the theatrics and sometimes builds a legacy. For poetry, like God, is not in the wind or the earthquake or the fire. It is the still small voice penetrating our minds, our souls, our understanding, with trippingly excellent words and allegories bent and spent against our defenses and pretenses. Quoted, sugar-coated, Shelley, Shakespeare, and Byron, my brother in practice, do not survive their flesh because of a dog and pony show, but because the words matter. Now we stand on a precipice. Western civilization teeters and totters and slaughters shepherds in Afghanistan and black men in Wisconsin because our bullets hit harder than words. But poetry, like gravity, is a subtle energy and converts our lovers, our brothers, our sisters, our children, and their children's children's children into a splinter of the truth we spat out because we saw the red wheelbarrow, and it invoked a sense of wonder and thunder. Within the poet's dreams, rise up. Rise up. Rise up and let your words unleash real, true, universal power to elevate the revolution, to power love and pain and guilt and joy and the occasional memory of things we wish we'd done or wish we hadn't. Tear down the false idols, stand at the barricades, and lead the parades of emancipation for every black, white, red, brown, man, woman, non-binary, gay, transgender, bisexual, lesbian, queer, liberal, conservative, and spread your mind seed to the world, to the universe, so that even if bad men and madmen destroy us all and our planet, one day, someone or something will hear your words and envy us our passions and the truth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, next one up is If God Wants Me Dead. If God wants me dead, he knows where to find me, so as to bind me to an impossible task, to ask of me more than all that he ordained and I built upon his foundation. I confess I am not physically immortal. Too many moving parts creak and seek a gentle rest often enough that I can tell there is a great discussion between my cells and bells as to when would be a good time to rebel against my will and toss me in a gutter with a flutter and a sputter. I have no illusion of winning the argument against entropy, but a stalling action is another thing altogether. All right, the title of this third one has to be explained. It's Atacama. Atacama is a desert in South America. It is the driest spot on earth. And yet there are still things that live there. And I was reading an article about it and I went, that makes a great metaphor for life. That things can still happen where you wouldn't expect them to happen. So I wrote this poem. I have seen what the indifference of the natural order to life can do to the mortal species. Transversely, what mortals can do by their indifference to this tiny speck of a planet and others. I have seen with unclouded eyes and promises of malleable metal, forged instruments of the heartless and hopeless, as used to dig holes for horticulture or minefields. The past is never truly abandoned. The scars remain, cut into mind and heart and flesh and histories, twisted but persisting, gangrenous distortions in the tortured perceptions laid as foundation. Tomorrow is indeed another day. And we say our platitudes, forgetting that a quote is but a tattoo on the tongue. The dung decomposes as gathered by beetles, in instinct to make it through to another generation. There will be other visions and passes and divisions and circumcisions out of habit and tribalism. We are all the colors of this limited melanistic palette, painted in false distinction to lull ourselves. The night approaches and comes again. The thief comes in the night as does the paramour. I believe in the life and love and hope and God, but babies and old people still die. Mourners wail and cry. The essence of love is understanding, and when such is impossible within our limited vision, it is time for acceptance that the desert remains harsh and beautiful as an indifferent lover. I have seen with perfect vision the sun rise both deadly and beautiful. A snap of the fingers does not change the pain over the next dune. We may yet see rivers. Phoenix and Gollum. This was written after the death of a friend a few years ago. Phoenix and Gollum, handmade, man-made, fire and clay, the blaze of, the haze of self-immolation, an act of self-preservation. Brass feathers quickened in the flesh of clay and phosphorus, a porous purpose to usurp us when we finally get traction on the scrith of life. Awake, my creation, awake and open wide the iron jowls to howls of Eden and Armageddon. Awake, pass through the sands like water on the beach, reaching for the leaching pull of buried rivers of thought, not yet assembled in coherence, but ready for the kin to fire at temperatures where clay melts and mythologies turn to ash, awake to seize the fates in clawed hands, iron bands that will cling against the sting of all the scorpions of resistance, persistence being a virtue of the damned. Thank you, Chrissa. I had a hard time figuring out what poem I should finish with. As those of you have heard me say, last time I had an editor index my work, there's like 32,000 that I've kept. So it's like, I've only published about 1,000 of them, but it's still, there's a lot there that you guys have never heard before and never will. They'll be published posthumously. I'll be like Prince. He had a vault of stuff he had recorded, and he said, after I'm gone, put out records. Yes, John, I'm a big Prince fan. This one is part of a sequence of poems I did invoking the Norse god Bragi. Now, you'll hear me sometimes refer to him as Bragi. Either is acceptable, but the proper pronunciation is Bragi. He was the god of eloquence and poetry, and he was famous for being able to talk people into doing anything, even gods. Got him into trouble more often than once. It is the grief of Bragi and Apollo that flowers wither and die. Ancient religions, the cure and curse of man. Passions personified, deified, made into words that endure beyond the flesh and fluids of our need to be merged with the divine. Nothing but the idols and temples remain beyond the moment. Are there not yet goddesses who walk the night? Are there not yet whispers in the silent halls that wend past my chamber and my tomb, the womb of my immolation and resurrection? It is the grief of Bragi and Apollo that flowers wither and die. You guys try this stuff sometime. So many broken chalices, so many shattered vows, so many craven cannibals among the sacred cows. And we are but the story, we are but the words. We are made to burn and pass. We are, but not I. What the blood cannot purchase, the soul consumes. What the hunger strips from us is everything. Show me the path, teach me the dance, make me yours. There are so many parts of me yet salvageable. There are so many parts of me that you would have use of and that I would gladly give on an altar of madness. It is the grief of Bragi and Apollo that flowers wither and die. I can, at a distance, with a word, with a dream or thought, touch you in ways mortal flesh cannot and will not, for those gates are sealed against sentient degrees of heat and seduction. We give what we can. Hollow. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, William.
Next time I'll read some good stuff.
We have Tammy Traurax. She's the State of Maine Beat Poet Laureate from 2018 to 2020. Hi, Tammy.
Hey, everybody. It's a cold, wet day up here in Maine, so I appreciate you all warming things up with your words. I'm going to read you a few poems written over the last year that I wrote for my city. They were published each Sunday by my city during the pandemic. And the story of what we were doing got picked up in an AP story that went all over the world, including in the New York Times. Not the poems, but the story about writing a poem each week. So this is sort of a little time capsule of the last year, and I'll take you to revisit that, because who wouldn't want to revisit the last year? First one's called Toast, A Toast. I was thinking about our ancestors and how our lockdown was pretty easy compared to what all of us had ancestors that went through. A toast. There is bread, there is butter. I shelter in my place, you in yours. Safe and warm, we want for nothing really, except perhaps freedom of movement, freedom from fear. Let us look within, recall the ancestors, for whom there was no bread, there was no butter. This one was published last April, about a year ago. When the time is right, what do you see from your kitchen window? Do you look out on something lovely or bleak? Upon the sill, does a fresh tomato wait? Sunning, ripening, completing, without counting the days until the time is right? Joy, health, peace, bread, wine, cheese, a rainbow of spring blooms, all having waited too. I wish to send to your table, wrapped in vintage linen, that you might unwrap when the time is right. Then, please enjoy them with your tomato, sprinkled with salt and grace. New haiku, thanks. New haiku. Some nights are so dark that the moon alone is sure morning will come. This is in honor of George Floyd, and this was published last Father's Day. It's called A Breathtaking Pain. Fatherless girls carry a stone, an anguish not unknown to me, yet never will I know the ponderous weight born today or any day by little Gianna Floyd. This one I wrote thinking about us being whiners again, about the lockdown. And I was thinking about Frida Kahlo. I'm a big fan of Frida. And I wrote this for her on what would have been her 113th birthday, which was July 12, 2020. Pain and loneliness, companions you couldn't send away. First confined to bed at the age of 6 when polio and the sound of Chico playing nearby brought tears. Then again at 18, when a bus crash mangled your bones, imprisoning you in plaster corsets and the 4 stucco walls of your sick room. Again and again and again over the years, confined, undermined, entwined by steel and stitches as surgeons sought but failed to end your suffering. You spent so much time abed, you learned to play and paint even while lying prone and alone. Looking at your bounty of self-portraits now, few know you explained. I paint myself because I am so often alone. I wonder if those of us bemoaning isolation in the here and now, unable to postpone a party, to forego what we want, think we need, do desire, would make you laugh or cry, to shake a paint-speckled fist from the bed in the blue house, cigarette smoke, monkey chatter, the sense of oil paints and sweat, the heavy heat of a Mexican afternoon, encircling your response as it rose unheard, blaspheming us to the beyond. This I wrote last July for a poet we lost over the year. It's called Transitions. Today I find the mask useful along with sunglasses to hide my tear-streaked face, not wanting to scare the barista who has had enough to deal with behind his own mask. He need not know, had just read the goodbye letter of a beautiful, brilliant poet, signing off forever from the outside world to slip into her hospice. Her courage, her sadness, her eloquence, her impending death have pummeled me with premature grief. I don't know how to prepare my goodbyes, though the inevitability, the enormity of the task hovers on the edge of this gorgeous summer. For today, I only know how to harvest a gourd from my meager garden, wash it in clear, cool water, and chop it with slow strokes of a sharp blade. For today, I only know how to measure, pour, and stir in slow folds batter for zucchini nut bread. to bake for the young man who fixed my car, realizing in the doing that there are so many ways to say goodbye. This one I published on the anniversary of our bombing of Hiroshima. It's called Haruo's Tale of Healing. Haruo Shimizu was his name. He was 42 on the day the little boy fell hard from the sky as parachutes billowed behind. Haruo saw a silver white flash, heard the sound of fireworks, then a thunderclap, flames, columns of brown clouds. Haruo was covered in blood, not his own. He shared his umbrella with a gasping woman as they stepped around bodies, begging for water or burned to death. Haruo suffered, but survived, and returned to Hiroshima Higher School, where he studied the work of his hero, the American poet Walt Whitman. Haruo felt that Leaves of Grass revealed the life journey of the soul, which even if beaten or broken, will in time reattach itself warmly to the world. This one was published in November when we had quite a bit going on in our country. This is us. My country, in spite of thee, we've shown ourselves to be as ruthless as barbarian clans of centuries long since elapsed. Different weapons, similar savagery. Barbaros, though, was a name given to voices the Greeks couldn't grasp. Ironically, they were said to stammer. My countrymen, our brutal dichotomy, since we sing in the same lexicon, is not so much a failure to understand as a failure to hear, a failure to care. Evolution, like ballot counting, is a maddeningly methodical telling of truths, an undeniable unfolding of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. We have so much talent here.
Thank you, Deb.
So next, I guess we're going on. Next up is Leo Jarret. He's the state of Michigan Beat Poet Laureate.
All right, I think we're in, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, poem is called Trees in Winter. Prologue. The floods came in March of that year that so many passed away, even many who continued on with their morning coffee and their evening news, and their buying and selling in the masses they purchased for the dead and the dead and gone. And they lasted throughout the spring, washing my father's garden that he had not tended since the last brush pile was burned in November of 2006, when he was seeing specters of the Grim Reaper and ghost children who lost their mother, when his eyes could no longer endure the November light, the November drear, the end of the day and the days, and the beginning of the night and the long night. When we hunted deer in direct accordance with his dying whisper, because he didn't want us to linger about staring at a goddamn dead body. The floods flowed softly over the banks of my father's creek, washed silently and with humility onto the old piece of land where dogs and soldiers alike are laid to rest in unmarked graves without casket or ritual, and took the fertility of his green thumbs and all of the perennial seeds away to the big lake. I heard a homeless man shouting at a housekeeping woman smoking in front of a big hotel in a big city. You know you shouldn't smoke. He was angry. I would be embarrassed if somebody saw me smoking. His voice was a ragged noise. It will kill you. It was raining and it was December and he was dying, disappearing into the cold winter earth, clinging to a single thread of dignity. And when I put his words into the pocket of my leather jacket, torn and clinging to its own dignity, they mingled with my father's bones, scattered on the bank of our family's creek and along the shore of our family's lake, and they were taken together by the floods that came that spring. Trees in winter. She asked me what I loved more than anything else. We were sitting in a little bar I know, in a second-story loft with windows opening onto the city and with winter's darkness descending on the sad dinner plates in the suburbs. I looked out the window at the lights and the passing cars on the street below and at my reflection in the dark glass. And I told her I love trees in winter. My father's voice was wistful and brooding and usually filled with inarticulate agonies, and his darkness is the ghost of every empty field in winter's earth, the earth in winter, where he taught me to skate on the frozen marsh water and to play hockey with boys from the raggedy beaches who were bigger and tougher than I was. And he taught me how to never back down and how to make anger the master of fear. And he taught me in that old barn of soybeans and tractors and plows and dirt and the smells of soil and men of the fields, how to catch particles of dust dancing in snatches of sunlight, angling from the tall windows onto the floors of earth. And he held a particle of dust in his fist of wood and stone, and he opened it and he asked, "Do you see it there in my palm?" And across the black cinder lane that wound its way through the hermitage and the pine grove of dead priests, and through the stands of oak trees, and their limbs naked and unashamed, black against the white sky, and through the dream that walks my heart across a crescent of light, Sister Paula Ann in full habit chanted, and her vespers of contrition were carried by ghosts of the sacred retreat through the fog of morning and the trees in winter and into the barn of dust, while the nuclear emergency siren rang out over our tiny hilltop village at 10 a.m. the first Wednesday of every month, and the apocalypse was upon us. And it was idiosyncratic and imminent and transcendent, just like the great and vehement God of creation and destruction, brooding over our fields and our burial grounds and our sacred places, just for practice, just in case. And my father called it the 10 o'clock whistle. And I thought it was the goat-footed balloon man whistling far and wee, whistling songs for the dead monk of the pine groves, whistling songs of the apocalypse, a man of cloven hoof who chews his cud, and we could eat him in direct accordance with the law of Moses, though he be a god, whistling great dirges into the morning fog. And the funeral bells of Brother Sebastian, whose body my father had just a few minutes before returned to the earth and to the dust of his origins, chipping away at the stony Catholic burial plot with pickaxe and shovel, retrieving relics from other tribes, tossing them aside like a workman with hands of earth, to be later sunk in the pond of Sister Maria, who drowned some years before wearing a blue nightgown on a cool morning in autumn, who my father found floating in green water with hair and hands and feet and blue waves of linen undulating as if in a dream, whose grave was still in my father's dark hair and whose dust was in my father's hands. And the dog of January's death will come here as well and mingle with Sister Paula Ann's hums and whispers and the song of the apocalypse rising and falling chillingly over all the rooftops of the city, and my mother's nameless existence in the half-light of a house undifferentiated from the terror of the Great Depression, when light was rationed along with sugar cookies and sassafras tea and hog bones for the beans, and dread rolled down the mountain like a forest fire in a mighty wind. The rationing of light in winter, and outside, cold. And the children are swept into the corners to be silent as the dust. In the protracted winter sunset, and lonesomeness and fear slips between the curtains without a sound and into the rooms and wraps itself around my shoulders as another supper comes and goes, and not a syllable is spoken because there are no words in this place where the great bear of the field of sunlight, the great brown bear of my ancestral trauma, is an epiphany in the fallow dust of summer and in the strange sun of times before I was born, running like a man enraged, running and hurtling rusted barbed wire fences and gates of hog barns. And my father's gun is not in the drawer of the old china cabinet because my father is not yet born. And I'm alone in this space of hog cries and blood and strangers who cannot see me, trembling and waiting to be born. I hope I get born before the great bear of August's earth comes for me. And I remember the 6 o'clock news reciting the mind-numbing drone of accidents on the interstate and another shooting in Detroit. And Mayor Coleman Young's remarks on the city's economic condition, and my father washing dishes, and the house was a banquet of shadows. And I always thought it was so dark because there were so many ghosts, and the house and they were sucking up the lamplight, and outside winter again, and wind and dark fields, and I feel and fear those lonesome hours in all the houses of the world. And yet, we are released from the entanglements of our youth, transfigured in Jesus Christ. The people who will be in my heaven, fucking A, crazy mix of crazy folk. I saw it tonight in a vision on an empty beach road. Crazy mix of crazy, beautiful, honest people. Wow, what a beggar's banquet we will have. All food, all drink on the house. Every third drink is a double because that's how they do it up in the Bronx. And this place is just the first stagecoach stop after the crossing. And my heart aches in the wolf moon's rising light because time is short now. And now we have to be true. And now we have to move away from all that was before, much of which is remembered in darkness and dimness like light squeezed through the eye of a needle into a gray room. And now we must no longer live in that space. And so many of the people I have loved will stay there. And I cannot visit them for even an hour because the dreary November twilight that stole the vision from my father's eyes and escorted him to the bedroom of his final breath is a sickness unto death. And I can no longer suffer intimacy with the dreary fields of the dead, musing upon the unmarked graves of the ones I did not know before this birth. And I cannot spend many hours in the fields of blood, or I may forget that I am alive. I may become like the dead. So I have been sprung, and I am dislocated, and it is life-giving, and it makes me weep. And I could not see the invisible dust in the palm of my father's hand, but I could see the earth on his boots from the grave of Brother Sebastian. And I could no longer see Brother Sebastian. And I could only perceive the grave of Sister Maria clinging to my father's dark hair. And I could only hear the contrition of Sister Paula Ann moving like grief in the fog of a winter morning. And I forgave her in that moment for my father's sobs.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Virginia Shreve. She's the state of Connecticut Beat Poet Laureate.
Thank you.
Hi, Virginia.
Hi. I've been just so amazed and astonished and enriched by everyone's work who's read before this. And thank you so much, Debbie and Paul and Chrissa, for this opportunity. I think my selection of poems perhaps doesn't go along with the rest of it, but that's okay. It is spring here, even though it snowed here yesterday, snow on the violets and the daffodils and the forsythia and so on, but still spring. So I'm reading kind of a triptych of 3 spring poems. I named them all Spring Is Not a Gentle Beast. 1, March, Dark in Promise. Gnarled laurel twists back upon itself, writhes from rock like striking snakes, fossilized. Spring will rise with venom. Great gray boulders erupt like the humped backs of buried whales, too long landlocked. A swallowed song rumbles. 2, in April the chorus astounds us. Tree frogs' tiny bellows chime like 1,000 tiny bells in the newly green woods, the will-be green woods, the awakened marsh. Hellebore and skunk cabbage emerge, garter snakes birth under sun-warmed leaves, 1,000 tiny bells, each pulsing throat a church. Proof that there is God, proof that there is not. Rising sap does not care. Thumping blood does not care. The budding hawthorn knows but will not tell. 1,000 tiny bells. 3. At last, May. Oh, the wild violets, the drunkenness of lilacs, the rosy-hackled, rose-tongued morning, the sun. Oh, the sun. The second one is called Dear Roberta. Why I haven't written in so long. Your cat tried to kill me, you know. My pulse like a fluttering moth in my throat, you said. I drank your mother's weak coffee, picking the grounds out of my teeth. She drove to the vet. I carried Mitty in a box. I didn't gloat. Was your mother a bareback rider in the circus? She looked like she could wear a plumed headdress. She looked like she knew secrets. Mine knew more. The ceiling collapsed, toilets exploded, tires blew, furnace quit, pretending. My father is himself only part-time now. He pastes my mother's old face on the scantily clad bodies of pinups. Unfortunately, began my horoscope. I didn't read the rest. Buzzards nested on the roof. We crossed Moon River. Mud flats slicked silver and stunk, took the Diamond Parkway into Savannah for the last time. He didn't look back. Joey and Lewis grew up. Lewis became a monster, planted hair plugs, whitened his teeth, sharpened them. I know about the dildo and the bedside table, I told him, or meant to, but didn't want to hear the explanation. Alice unrepentant. Alice slept with a married man. I watched them put the paddles on. Should we get her out of the room, they asked. I watched them shock his heart. His body twitched and leaped like it was escaping. There are claw marks in the vestibule. The bitch was in heat, the dog mad for her. For 9 months, I felt the swelling, knew the heartbeat. I dream of her tiny, pale fingers like anemones strumming the current. Dear Roberta, I hope the family is well, dear. This is the start of one called You Could Say. You could say we are but bellows and pump, lust and grunt, a bony scaffold, a meaty drape, and blood, oh, so much blood. Our doomsday abacus directing us, yearning but a glandular condition, a chemical souffle, poetry a misfiring of synapse, a speech impediment, music binary derangement. You could say that, but I hope you do not. Faith of our fathers. Religion never did a thing for women, but faith helped them to endure this religion. Men got high hats embroidered in scarlet and gold. Women got the washing up and the penance. This one makes me happy. This one is called Walt Whitman as Dog, or Song of My Own Self, by Thurber Shreve, as told to Virginia Shreve. So any mistakes in punctuation are mine completely. Dogs we know have impeccable punctuation. I've lost my teeth with the corrugated wind, lips stretched tight in fearsome rictus as I streak by, terrified bystanders cower and cry, wolf, wolf, or retriever, retriever, he's wet and he's got a ball. I can't be sure because when I run, I close my ears and my head goes numb. Muscle and sinew and bone and breath, thump, crash, stomp, jump, seed and thistle, burr and bristle, bloom, stick, marsh, mire. Oh, what souvenirs I bring home today. Back, 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 somewhere above the gulp and swallow of roaring breath, wind, faint but persistent. Perhaps gull, perhaps girl, familiar, but it'll come to me sooner if I stop. But of course I do not stop until stench, stink, odor, oh, happy seducer throws a hook in my eager nostrils. What is this? I know you. I remember you. Oh, my dear old dead thing, how I've missed you. Now the holy trinity of dog, roll in it, pee on it, eat it. I pee high, wide, and handsome. Breeze ruffles cool over my fond parts, weighty and festive like Christmas ornaments, nay, like chandeliers, chandeliers that is the palace that is myself. But getting closer, a tickle in the ear, like that tickle in your throat when a thing with scrabbling toenails does not go gentle down your good gullet. It may, after all, be girl, calling the name she imagines is mine, but my name is not sound, but smell. I trail my biography like vapor. With every step I take, I add chapters, ephemeral, like pumpkin pie too close on a countertop, lasting, like the mysterious stain on the Persian rug. I am for dazzling boy of infinite tongue and gonad delight, who today ate cheese and rolled in manure. Those with nose know me. Hark, the bringer of treats cometh. Oh, glorious, glorious edible world. I guess that's probably my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. So next up, we have Ernel Grant. He was the State of Connecticut Beat Poet Laureate from 2017 to 2019. Hi, Ernel.
Hello, Debbie. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure being here, vibing with you, sharing artistry on, this Poetry Month, and it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I'm going to start off by doing some drumming. Always try to invoke the ancestors into everything that I'm doing artistically. So I'm going to do a little drumming, and then I'll just jump into a piece. All right. So yeah. Now, let me jump to my first piece. My soul is tormented. My words, yes, my words are harsh and perceived as demented, but how could I be content? How could I sleep well knowing that we're still killing each other and have so much resentment? Tormented am I because there seems to be no end in sight. Tormented souls thinking, yes, thinking that they have no choice but to take another brother's life. And during these trying times that we're enduring, instead of showing some support by lighting a candle, the light that's shown only stops another brother from breathing. So my words cry out. My words cry out in agony. When will we come to our senses? When will we learn? So many bodies on the streets, battered and torn. How many more generations will continue to repeat the mistakes of the previous? I said, how many more generations will continue to repeat the mistakes of the previous? These are my words and meditations, so let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my soul be accepting and pleasing unto you. Thank you. So I'm going to go into a poem actually written by people at Poets Realm. It's a collective poem that we all wrote together. And this one just happened to come into my possession this morning. It was from June 18th of 14 when I was still in Connecticut. So it's great to find a piece from my time in Connecticut. And so let me get into this. Collective poem, 6/18/14. While he sucks on my nipple, I stare into space, imagining how the stars seem closer with every touch below my waist, provoking my Milky Ways, controlling my insights. I'm watching it pour out into his throat. Fuck, his mouth. So good. I want him to continue to lick, suck and lick, and what his mouth do though? I love the way you wake me up in the morning with your licking and biting. My stuff will forever be breakfast, you heard? You heard? What the weekend said, pussy so good. Gotta save that shit for later. But damn, I still want it so bad. Impregnating your smile with laughter. Folding. The whispers in your ear, I love when you stare at me. Those pineapple yellow eyes like your mother's DNA is Papua New Guinea. Breast milk and rainy days keep the doctor away. I sway, waiting for your chocolate surprise. Double dip as the mahogany in me rise. Surprises were meant to be unwrapped. Kept away from the silent whispers we would hear at night. Peace, be with you, be to the unknown because your yesterday is history. Tomorrow is mystery. And today is a gift, that is why it's called the present. That one was a little all over the place, but it's a poem that we all wrote together. And I just wanted to display how a lot of different individuals could come together and just create something that's really nice and just different. Okay. Gonna do another piece, and this is near and dear to me. It involves, growing up and growing up in Jamaica with some hardships, and I'm just gonna jump into it. Sometimes I feel like a fatherless child. Sometimes I feel like a fatherless child. Sometimes I feel like a fatherless child. A long way from home. Yo, brethren. Yo, say me to look up to you. Say me the think say you were the world. But you said I look up on my face. Yeah, that look ya. Do you see the disappointment? Do you see the pity? My boss, do you see the scorn? How could you prey upon your own children? How could you even think of doing something that would hurt them? Something that would scar them for life or death? Do I now show you threat? You see, me as a man now and me a tower over you. Should I beat you into a pulp with my fists? Should I put you in a headlock and twist, me say bomb clot twist like this? You see, me now gotta rock the brethren because me is nothing like you. Them crazy, despicable, disgusting things me coulda, woulda, never do. Still, me try to understand the when, the what, the why, and the how. How could you climb in that bed with your little girls that you supposedly love and adore so much? Why did you make them grow up in such a rush? Me say, how could you rip apart which can never be mended? You see, me did look up to you, but no, that shit's ended. So to be told, yo, you're just like your father. Me say, that always put through me like a knife. Because seeking pleasure in a baby girl, much less my own flesh and blood, can't even be imagined in this or any life. Time, does it really heal the mind? So this is dedicated to the man, me say, the man who? Because sometimes I feel. Thank you. Whew. All right. I'm going to move to my last piece. And this is one of the first piece that I wrote. This is actually probably the second piece that I wrote. And this is, it's dedicated to the gun violence that's prevalent in our communities. And, senseless violence that doesn't need to happen. So now this is called Guntown. Guntown, Guntown, gun, Guntown, Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven, Kingston, Jamaica is a gun town, gun town. The youth them are dead like flies and that no right in the almighty eyes. Because projectiles which through flesh, injuring, maiming, and ending lives. The youth them are going like say them a star in a tombstone or a gunfight at the OK Corral. But another black man 6 feet under, instead of being home with him family, singing Christmas carols. So Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven, Kingston is a gun town, gun town. They be saying, yo, I gotta put a hole in your crown. Don't be trying to sell on my block, you clown. You rolling with wusses, so I'll wet that body up if you even frown. I'm coming through blasting. I'm coming through blasting first and asking questions later, so you better duck down, hit the ground, duck down. Me no care if you're Peter, Paul, Luke, or John. You said the wrong bumbo cloth thing out of your mouth, and I did. Because for your crew is no threat. So, hey boy, oh y'all going like say you're bad, so. Me say, oh y'all going like say you're bad, so. You see me no give a mama ras cloth if me shoot, or stab you. Because this is Guntown. So I'm reaching out to all the youngsters in all the boroughs, all the cities, all the towns. Yo, man, put the guns down. Senseless violence. We don't need this shit in our town. So peace and blessings. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. Much love and blessings, y'all.
Thank you so much, Ernel.
You are quite welcome, Debbie. Thanks for being a part of this.
Next up, we have Rich Ferguson. He's the State of California Beat Poet Laureate. Hi, Rich.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for the honor. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to do 3 poems about LA, actually. So this first one's for Wanda Coleman. It's called In the Gomorrah of Glamour and Gimme All You Can. Life is one long madness in the Gomorrah of glamour and gimme all you can. We the living wander between absolute truths and the delusions of capped teeth, vacant-eyed Madonnas flashing fistfuls of nirvanaless dollars. Ballistic spiritualists and CIA operatives disguised as holy prophets stand on street corners shouting machinated missives. A perpetuation of purposeless paranoia and pointless preambles of pandemonium, while media-hungry whores whose body temples have been desecrated by gods of addiction trick their souls for another toke off the cash pipe. Yeah, one suck can bring 15 minutes of fame or a sudden OD on vanity. Life is one long crash and burn in the Gomorrah of glamour and gimme all you can. Our aggressions, obsessions, denials, and denigrations build the cornerstone of planned obsolescence, crying out to the world, expecting echoes of salvation, receiving only long, unforgivable silences. Trying to shake off all the insults and innuendos nailed to our bones, bellyfuls of brutalities and betrayals acquired over a lifetime, fattened up on fatalism, while myopic optimism stumbles blindly down the boulevard of extremely bad behavior. Where rapists, tailgaters, drug pushers, pedophiles, stalkers, shit talkers, insomniacs, crash addicts, and detritus riders on the storm of prefabricated love, suffering the PTSD of junkyard LSD, rain down disease and need on a saviorless city of angels. Where buried underground, one can find more serial killer corpses than new sources of water. Yeah, sometimes the only thing that can quench the thirst is bloodlust. Life is one long sadness in the Gomorrah of glamour and gimme all you can. Not even tigers can guard this landscape of fading ease. What once were wings are now only clipped eclipses and fancy clothes. No sympathy or healing tea leaf readings, only barbed wire and indignation as pain and suffering slip through the cracks like smoke, cloud mirrors that can no longer look us in the eye. Yes, so quarrelsome are these days, packing brass-knuckle troubles, jacked up on limited visions of what were once so brightly promised tomorrows, while in defense we stand armed, only with aerosol cans of I think I can, downgraded to no how, no way, no how, no way. Yeah, every moment the future looks dimmer, life is cheap. As for death, if by chance there's rebirth, it'll only be available to witness on a limited basis through pay-per-view. This is another day in LA. One. Early morning symphony of coffee brewing, babies burbling, truck gears grinding, industry wheezing, blackbirds singing, barrio bus stop benches creaking, emaciated mop-top rock star palm trees rustling in the breeze. Those unheard, the sleeping, the dead, and stealthy coyotes lurking through Los Feliz neighborhoods, hunting down garbage scraps and stray pets. 2. Bankers, lawyers, gangbangers, homemakers, social workers, sex workers, everyone making deals, another fix, another fuck, another drive-by, another marriage abolished or saved, deals being made in high-rises, hotel rooms, parked cars, courtrooms and kitchens, sleazy deals tattooed with diamonds and dollar signs, honorable deals sealed with a handshake, desperate deals gone so wrong not even the darkness stuck around to witness all the shadows that went down. 3. From Hollywood to Hawthorne, Watts to Woodland Hills, the circling and buzzing of police helicopters, urban birds singing only the blues. 4. People rushing to jobs, gyms, malls, AA meetings, everyone searching for or escaping demons, death, money, love, salvation. Hurry. It's only seconds before someone pulls a trigger, only seconds before someone plants the seeds of a kiss. 5. Promises flimsy as negligees, dreams too big for a million hearts to hold, become a star or slip through the cracks, dwell anonymously as dust, that aching feeling deep inside, an eviction notice being posted on your soul. 6. Car exhaust, factory pollution, byproducts from aerosol cans and wildfire smoke crowd out the sky, skull and crossbones breathing, noxious and obnoxious breathing. At least some are comforted by the notion that all the poisons make for beautiful sunsets. 7. Evening injects meth, makes once wished upon stars edgy, chronically reaching for the burned spoon moon beneath tweaked out galaxies. People struggle for direction and meaning, others craving more faithful and comforting constellations. Visit the Walk of Fame stars on Hollywood Boulevard. 8. Bars that are more like churches, street hustlers that are more like healers. Here lives can be lost and saved in many ways. 9. The dutiful and the damned, the famous and freakish, clergy members, counterfeiters, cancer patients, all are blessed and unified in slumber. Though once the bedside alarm rings, it's half past one's own version of heaven and hell. Soundtrack to a modern-day L.A. palm noir. Sounds of Hollywoodland thrills and chills set in ultra-moody hues of 1940s, 50s gangster L.A. brass-knuckled fast talk of hard-boiled thugs and detectives, kiss-me deadly melodies of femme fatales, bar brawls, catcalls, the cold click of stiletto heels, stiletto blades, and morgue cooler doors closing on still another John Doe. Those sounds mixed with present-day sounds, riotous rhythms forged from hands of Leimert Park djembe demigods, break beating on wings of rap and revolution. Car horns, car radios, car alarms, freeways clogged with huddled and befuddled masses, inching towards invention, reinvention, prosperity, invisibility. Our past and present city sounds combining and recombining to create the soundtrack to a modern-day L.A. palm noir, a white heat double indemnity song of live and die set deep in the blood, pulsing through the hearts and minds of one and all, Century City lawyers to San Pedro dock workers, West Side yoga warriors to Skid Row warriors, drug addicts to the clean and sober, clergy members to tattooed rock gods, those on their deathbeds and those suffering from fever dreams of almighty stardom. Our soundtrack to a modern-day L.A. palm noir packs a hot and howling will of Santa Ana winds, earworms its way into our soul, jukeboxes with our inner demon seeks alleyways as if they're confessionals in which to share sins. Its mirrors and reflections rain in complex plot lines, fingernails dragging across our blackboard jungle brains as that voice in our head proclaims, yeah, I've been beaten up, but I'm not beaten, and I'm not quitting. Our soundtrack to a modern day LA Palm Noir, stained with its history of notorious crimes and criminals, from the Black Dahlia to Sharon Tate, the Hillside Strangler to the Grim Sleeper. It's a hymn filled with hums of late night neon signs and the short vowel sound of death's last sigh on a victim's lips, ohms and bad omens, sirens and babies crying, police helicopters circling, buzzing like hornets out for a sudden sting. Our soundtrack to a modern day LA Palm Noir. It's a lurid and lethal hunger, fueled by gasoline, sweat, and tears, decked out in false eyelashes and false promises. It's a true love and true crime booty call, wooing with stroked and stoked hallelujahs, purring like sex kittens, knitting kisses out of thin air, moving, grooving, coaxing, cajoling, ready to find us innocent or guilty beneath midnight street lights, shining like halos and interrogation lights. Our soundtrack to a modern day LA Palm Noir. It's a death song in the key of cordite, heard by Sam Cooke when taking a bullet at the Hacienda Hotel. It's a non-stop party song wailed by Tom Waits, Iggy Pop, and Janis Joplin at the Tropicana in the low-rent, high-spirited late 60s. From Alvera Street to Rodeo Drive, Watts Tower to the Miracle Mile, generations of races and ethnicities, occupations and preoccupations, adding to our city's song, from labor movements battling 1920s union busters to 50s and 60s Chavez Ravine families facing down bulldozers and eviction notices, from African Americans chased out of 1930s sundown towns to the later cries of Rodney King when suffering the blows and bruises of racism-wielding police, from the technicolor visions of Timothy Leary to the technikiller machinations of Raymond Chandler. Our city song, it can be so serious and surreal. Drum loops of dull footsteps pacing confines of 6x8 cells at Minden Central Jail, mixed with the disembodied voice of Joe Gillis narrating the story of Sunset Boulevard while floating dead in a swimming pool. Other days, our city song is a raucous hip-hop crumping and locking down Hollywood Boulevard, a funky freestyle. Red carpet gala popping with paparazzi and Klieg-like bonfires illuminating our highest cells. Let us shine. Let us shine, let us shine. Our gangsterfied and glorified city sounds revving their engines, burning rubber on asphalt, breaking all natural and supernatural speed limits, drag racing down the 10 freeway, the 5, 405, 101, and 60 to all points, north, south, east and west, from Koreatown to Croatian Place, Little Moscow to Little Ethiopia, Lake Balboa to Larchmont, Echo Park to the Palisades. Every shade of LA's urban crayon box, creating the mood, mystery, shadows, and light, harboring the living and dead, everything existing between celluloid and the flesh, all the devils and angels that are our dance partners in this manic and mystical, sadistic and symphonic soundtrack to our modern day LA Palm Noir. Thank you. Thank you, Debbie, again.
Thank you, Rich. That was great. Next up, we have Ron Whitehead, and he's the Beat Poet Laureate from Kentucky. Welcome, Ron.
Hello, Debbie, and all you beats across the USA and around the world. Ron Whitehead here from the meditation garden outside my writing hermitage on Cherokee Road in the Highlands of Louisville, Kentucky. I got 2 poems to share with you. The first one is on being an outlaw poet. To live outside the law, you must be honest. Bob Dylan, outlaw poet. An outlaw could be defined as somebody who lives outside the law, beyond the law, not necessarily against it. By the time I wrote Hell's Angels, I was riding with them, and it was clear that it was no longer possible for me to go back and live within the law. There were a lot more outlaws than me. I was just a writer. I wasn't trying to be an outlaw writer. I never heard of the term. Somebody else made it up. But we were all outside the law. Kerouac, Miller, Burroughs, Ginsberg, Kesey, me. I didn't have a gauge as to who was the worst outlaw. I just recognized my allies. my people. My friend Hunter S. Thompson, outlaw writer who grew up and roamed these highlands, wrote that. The ending of time, an alchemical rant. Time was, time is, time will be no more. And it's the Big Bang epiphany and the gap between thought and images, voices, streams, racing, whispering through the blood, pleading through my bones, strange activities of my nerves, the unconscious life of the mind, a tetrameter of I ams marching, shouting, alchemically transmutative symbol decipherment, the book as sacred elixir, manger du livre, eat the book and the words will set you free. The shortest distance between 2 points is creative distance, and Allen Ginsberg howls, I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, and dying to prima rants. The only war that matters is the war against the imagination. All other wars are subsumed in it, and a Mary Baraka chants, they have turned and say that I am dying, that I have thrown my life away. They have left me alone where there is no one, nothing save who I am, not a note, not a word. And Lawrence Ferlinghetti paints pictures of the gone world. Mysterium tremendum, Gnostical turpitude, Allen Ginsberg, Dying to Prima, Mary Baraka, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, numinous howls and rants and chants and paintings, and years of tears come fiercely flowing, streaming, all the pain wells up, years of failure, of not being enough for anyone, years of wandering, lost on the outside, outlaw, being told, you ain't shit, you don't fit, what the fuck you doing here? All you've done is create pain and sorrow. Wouldn't you be better off dead? Turning away from, walking away from, disappearing from bullies, authorities, tyrants, the past, the dead. In the hermetic corridors of authority, the dead somberly splash in their shallow sewers, devouring and regurgitating themselves, and with tears in my eyes, a snarl on my lips, and peace in my heart, I'm failing as no other dare fail, and I'm in the gap between thought and image. How'd I get here after all the years of not being self, after all the years of being other, of floating out of my body, on the ceiling, watching skin, blood, bones, nerves going through the motions, believing in space and time without realizing I was already out of sync, beyond chaos, breathing rhythms at the ending of time. And now, here, in the gap between thought and image, where the only distance is creative distance, here, now, at the ending of time, I focus all three eyes in wolf fashion, closing time. I walk through the stone called lump of fat, and I float through the fire that is central, and I enter the upper chamber of the golden pyramid, the confluence of all streams, polyglot commingling of all voices. Thalos feeds herself. And as I float over the open sarcophagus, I am the ocean of consciousness. One more for you. Shooting up poetry in New Orleans. Near the levee, a maroon Hudson sedan driven by Neil Cassidy pulls up to a dilapidated old house with tall grass and weeping willows in the yard. It's 509 Wagner Street, Algiers, the home of William S. Burroughs. Neil, Jack Kerouac, Al Hinkle, and Lou Ann Henderson arrive from the road to spend a few days with Burroughs. Burroughs rarely goes out except to make his connection. He invites Kerouac to try his orgone accumulator. Burroughs says, sit inside and you'll absorb life principle atoms right out of the atmosphere. He attempts to convince Kerouac into abandoning his road trip with Cassidy. Years later, I'm in New Orleans, standing outside the Howlin' Wolf Club. I'm here to produce yet another Beat Generation spirited 48-hour non-stop music and poetry insomniacathon, and I've been burning up the road day and night with no end in sight. I'm feeling burnt out, tired to the bone, so I'm searching for a fix of poetry to shoot into my blood, to rejuvenate my spirit. I'm calling on Bill Burroughs and Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassidy, but I haven't found my orgone accumulator, my new poetry yet, and my head is hanging so low it's dragging the ground. I've known nothing but failure lately, and I've been burning the candle at both ends so long there's nothing left of me but smoke and ashes. So I'm wondering if the time has finally arrived for me to become cinder for that long-distance, never-ending railroad track to nowhere. My spirit screams out for help, and in a flash, I hear Allen Ginsberg whisper, take a hand, share the word. And out of the blue, the poetry gospel starts flowing through my groin and my gut and my heart and my head. And my, oh my, I jump up and shout and sing. Yes, right here in front of the Howlin' Wolf Club. I'm grabbed hold of by the poetry spirit, and now someone's singing and banging on a piano. So I open the door and peek in, and lo and behold, there's Dr. John doing double note crossovers and over and unders. He's doing his ooh la mala walla. He's playing and speaking in tongues right here in the middle of the holy New Orleans afternoon. And out of the blue, I find the poetry I've been looking for. I look up and there's the full moon smiling at me from over the Mississippi River, and I think of Algiers and Bill Burroughs and Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassidy, and I think of Neil's flame gone, 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 his naked body lying beside those long-distance, never-ending railroad tracks to nowhere. And I hope all the poets and musicians performing at this 48-hour non-stop music and poetry insomniacathon, hell, I hope all of us keep the funk. Keep that fuck you flame alive. Don't let the system break you. Don't let life break you. And I hear Dr. John playing that piano and singing his boogie woogie into the world blues. And in that moment, I know my reward is in the experience of poetry. And right here, right now, I'm in New Orleans with all these poets and musicians who somehow know the magical power of poetry. The word sets us free, and I think about Allen Ginsberg and what he said about taking somebody's hand, because we're all in this together. We're pulling, we ain't pushing, we're letting it be. We realize that when one of us is lifted up, we're all lifted up, and I realize that poetry is life and life is poetry, and I feel an energy rising through me, growing strong, coming from poets and musicians of all ages. And I don't feel like failure anymore. I feel good, I feel strong, I feel reborn into poetry, into life, and it feels like resurrection, rebirth into poetry right here, right now, shooting up poetry in New Orleans. Thank you all.
You all should be very proud, because you are all such powerful poets. Your words like really hit you in the heart. You're all very sincere, and I love you all.